this is the motion monitor software. If you've used the Iris CM before, this is the same software platform with the addition of the Iris Edge components. And so if you have an Iris CM, like the one I have behind me, and an Iris Edge, they would be controlled, managed, monitored from the same place here. You just have a list of devices here. I have this Edge. This is the serial number for that one. If you had an Iris CM, you'd see it below here, and you can control everything. Let's go right into it. So I have this one Edge device here. I'll leave my camera here. I'm going to click on it. So I get some buttons here we'll talk about in a moment. But when we want the Edge to move around and take different readings, we're going to add different triggers. And so this can be considered a measurement point, something you're going to look at. You're going to set the camera settings, lighting settings, all the different parameters you're going to have for that particular field of view and measurement. But it can be independent from something else. So if you could have a list of 10 up to 20 triggers here, each of them can have completely different settings. And so if we dive into this, we'll take a look at some of the settings we have. Inside here, we have these 5 controls. So we have our camera properties, very similar to an Iris M in an Iris CM setup here. We have our resolution, our camera frame rate, brightness, focus, gain. We'll come back to this in a moment. We have our pan tilt controls, lighting, where you can control our own lighting, where the ROI is and what we're collecting and what we're measuring, and then what those actual data, the scalar data graphs that Tim was talking about that are getting published on PTT, and so what those are actually set up to be. There's a very important thing here. I'm going to start with camera properties. You'll notice if I make this screen a little bigger, I have this live camera, so I got my hand here. You can tell the focus is way out of whack. And so one of the biggest things with this camera that I think is really a great highlight is that we have electronic lens control. And so there's a couple buttons here that are unique to the Edge. You would not see them in the Iris CM or the Iris M. If I hover over it here, you'll see it'll pop up. But this one's auto brightness, and this one's auto focus. And so if I just simply click on this, you'll see here, it kind of took the image, cleaned it up, tightened it up, focused it, and that's all electronic and automatic. So there's no need to actually touch the camera to adjust the lens, which is one of the setups you have to do with the M and the CM. And then you also get brightness control, which means that we're essentially controlling aperture, the amount of light. And so this way you can also have the camera lighting conditions, which can be really helpful as an example, the steel mill where we have that camera setup that Tim was showing. There's a garage door in the back that opens up from time to time and lets in an enormous amount of light, which then can saturate and causes a whole bunch of different kind of obstacles with the field of view. And so with the Edge, we actually have the ability that every time it's going to look and take a measurement, you can have it on acquire, check brightness, and also check that the focus is good. And it'll do that every time electronically. And so this is an enormously powerful tool. It really kind of says in terms of the installation and setup, when Tim said we were in and out of that plant in about 90 minutes, we did not have to mess with focus. We did not have to mess with the aperture. We did not have to mess with the lens because we were going to do it all digitally anyway, which takes an enormous amount of time kind of out of the setup. Onto the other really powerful feature is the pan and tilt. And so you'll see here, I have the camera off my back shoulder here. If I want to just I have this kind of at a certain angle, but you'll see if I enter in some numbers here, like 30 degrees, and hit enter, you'll see the camera behind me moves. Maybe do something a little more aggressive, do like 10. I don't know how I did the thumbs up, but okay. Now it's kind of looking at us, or it's looking at my screen, my hand. This is moving the whole camera. And so we have pan tilt control. There's our pan, and then our tilt. We can go up 30, down 30, and then micro adjustments to really fine tune what we're trying to do. And so I want to have I have this demo rig right off the screen here that I want in focus, or I want in my field of view. So I'm going to use this to kind of control. I'll bring this up a little bit, bring this over a little bit. And I think we're going to be pretty close. Put a little more. So something like that. There's my field of view. These settings now get saved to this trigger as a place the camera will now come back to and take a measurement at this location. I've not set the ROI up yet. I'll do that next. But this is then how the camera will essentially orient itself to take the measurement. But as you can see, my view here is kind of dark. And so it'd be really good to have some external lighting. There's a lighting controller and also LED lights that we have that support with the edge. And so here I have this LED light through a cable. We have a light controller. I have kind of sitting on a DIN rail back here. This communicates with the edge camera and is controllable in a couple ways. We can have it come on all the time. So like here, now I have my light. It's just on. And so I have it where no matter what is going on, no matter what brightness, no matter what the condition in the environment is, you can have the light always come on. Or I can come in here and say, let me hit set point. I can come in here and actually say, only under certain lighting conditions, if it's dark enough or if it's just kind of on the edge, only under certain conditions do I actually want the light to come on. And so you can actually come in here, and in this case, at that certain lighting, the light's going to come on. But if I come back in here and say, actually I want it to be, this should, so that'll keep it on. And then if I actually say, hey, if it's already brighter than this in my room, turn the light off. And so this amount of control then is very similar to the electronic brightness control, where if you're outside, you're in areas where there might be changes in light in different situations. This allows us to compensate, to then have the recording kind of always make sure that we have good saturation, that we're not overexposed, and then also to make sure that you actually have control of the environment the best way you can. The lighting control supports 4 of these lights. And the idea would be that you could mount them closer to where the camera is, or you could do here, like where I kind of mounted it off to the side. And then you can run it from that point of view and put the light exactly kind of where you want it. And then fine tune how it's going to power on and power off. And so what I can do here is I'll come back, I'll just set it to manual, I'm going to turn the light on no matter what. And then I'll move on to my next property. Here is, I'm going to draw my ROI. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn my machine on. Here, this is a very similar setup to an Iris CM. So if you're familiar with what these settings look like on the CM, we're pretty much looking at the same thing. I'm going to make this a little bigger. I'm going to take this ROI. There's some movement on the motor. There's also some movement in the stanchion that I like to show. So I'll leave it right there. And what I can do is wherever I place this ROI, I can set how long my trigger is going to run for. I can set, it's going to be my waveform peak to peak, and I'm going to set my trigger level. I can see what I have. I can go ahead and hit acquire and just pull some data right now and just see what I'm looking at. And this will give me the waveform. So I have a little bit of a sinusoid here with some kind of little cups here. What this allows me to do is control whether I'm going to collect all the data I want or only some of the data I want. And this is where these functions on the side come in. We can have the camera, every time it takes data, collect a recording. Pull this little drop down. Recording being the RDI file, the scalar data, it'll do that every time. You can have it just give you an MP4 video, which means that it's going to give you an export to MP4. It's not going to save the RDI file, and it still gives you scalars. You can pick all, which is I'll get the RDI file, an MP4 video, the scalars, all of that. Or I'm going to say, I just want the scalar data. I just want the waveforms. I want the FFT. I want the peak to peak. That's what this none option is. And so that can really control what type of data you're getting out of the edge camera. Like the CM, we also have the ability for email notification. So if something breaches a threshold, which is set down here, you can have it send you an email that something has kind of exceeded a certain level. You can also set it where I only want you to save data if that threshold's exceeded. With this unchecked, I save all the data all the time. With this checked, I'm not getting any data saved until I breach my trigger level. And this last option, which is Tim highlighted a couple slides ago, is publish data to our status view, which is the in-motion monitor dashboard, or MQTT. And this is all the scalar data being published every time a measurement is taken with the edge camera. And so this is simply a check on, check off. Once you have your ROI set, what associated measurements you have what's really being published to MQTT, but also being saved in Motion Explorer. And so we give you the waveform, we give you the spectrum, and we give you waveform peak to peak. You are by no means limited to that. You can come in here, you can click, I want to say, maybe I want to put some parameter bands. And so maybe you want something looking at a 1 hertz, or sorry, a 1x speed, maybe so like a 50 hertz motor. Maybe you want something between 48 and 52, and maybe this is a motor 1x. And so this could be your band. You can put these in here. This will be published through MQTT. You can also then edit them and give them threshold values. And this will give you the colors on the gauges inside the dashboard, that like red, yellow, green, kind of giving you certain threshold levels. All of this control down here is for setting up where the data is stored in Motion Explorer. But you can see here, we kind of just went step by step for this measurement trigger, and this is how we would configure the edge for different measurements. If you're ready to then say, I want to go collect some more data, I want to set up another trigger, we can come back to here. We can add another trigger. It'll put another one in my list. We would repeat all the same things again. Here we can have a completely different, we can pick something, we can pick a smaller field of view, which then gives me the ability to run the camera faster. You can see how much smaller it is. I'm going to come down to maybe my pan tilt, and I want this to then be maybe a little more focused on the motor. I'll index this over. So now we have a really good look at the motor. I'll come back to my trigger properties. I now want to move my ROI, so it's on the motor. Grab this little sticker. You can see my lighting is not so good, so I'm going to add that same lighting controller. I'm going to use that as my light. Maybe not the best position of my light here, but not too bad. And then with my associated measurements, my waveform, my spectrum, my peak to peak, onto my camera properties, I can make sure that this looks auto brightened, auto focused, set my distance in feet here, about 4.1, and you're good to go. And at this point then, if I want to run these two triggers, you'll see that if I click on the first trigger, you'll see here the camera kind of moves and adjusts to this position. When I pick the second trigger, camera kind of adjusts, picks the second position, also turns on the light again. And this is the behavior it'll do and run these measurements. When we're ready to go, we'll come back up to the top of the camera. I have some options here for how often it's going to measure. That's under cycle properties. This means it's going to measure these 2 points every 5 minutes. I can do it as fast as 2. Put 2 in there. And then if I have an MP4, this is the one, it'll auto-generate me an MP4 with these settings. So a certain playback factor, a certain amplification. But I also have the option here to set a filtered MP4, and it'll look at the top peaks, however many you choose here. So maybe I say 3. The top peaks in that recording, automatically filter the video to those top peaks and then produce the MP4. This is a function you can turn on that helps kind of take some of those extra steps that an analyst might do anyway, and then just have the system do it for you automatically. And once you have this set, you can go ahead and hit start monitoring. And so we can actually watch the camera in real time here. So it's going to that first trigger, it's hitting preparing, frames the whole machine. It's checking the focus, checking the brightness, queuing up. It should take a measurement here. It should say processing. And it's only a 3-second recording, I believe, so it's not going to take too long. That one's collected. It's now going to move, camera moves, adjusts over to that motor, turns the light on again as I requested. It's going to check the brightness, it checks the focus. And this one's taken at a higher frame rate. Collected. And now, if there was more measurements to take, it would continue on. At this point, these 2 measurements are done. It'll cycle back to them in 2 minutes to collect them. In the meantime, it's already transferring the data into our system. So it's pulling in this first trigger, and then there's the second. And then from there, we can then jump into motion amplification and use all the same tools, all the same functions to do analysis. And at the same time, when it was measuring these points, it was publishing that data out to MQTT.